Well, summer is here, which for Vizio means updates to their televisions for all of your viewing and gaming pleasure. They actually sent one out to me and it's proven to be a great companion for my next-gen consoles without having to break the bank. So let's take a look at it. It's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? Here's what worked and what didn't with this brand new Vizio M-Series television available now. Now, obviously, this is going to be pretty subjective for pretty much every one of you watching, but I actually think that this particular size of TV works really well as a middle ground. I've had the pleasure of checking out some large TVs over the last year, so when Vizio sent over this 55-inch M-Series, my excitement was admittedly a little bit measured. But after spending a couple of weeks with this television, I actually find it just the right size for the kind of fun that I want to have on it. As you can see here, I have a small gaming area now set up, with this TV stand giving me just enough room to put my next-gen consoles to the sides of the TV. The television itself is near bezel-less on all but the bottom portion where the logo and the power LED reside, with one simple button underneath that LED. It stands on two V-shaped sets of legs that go on the side, so you have to bear that in mind with any TV stands that you might already have or that you might have to get to accommodate it. The HDMI ports include one that has ARC capability, which I outfitted with one of Vizio's own soundbars. More on that later. And then the other two support HDMI 2.1 features, which we'll get to a little bit later as well when I talk about gaming. Aside from that, you get other things like an optical audio jack and then one USB port for powering any peripherals that might need it. Now, I do say easy on the eyes here, and it does have to do with the image output as well. Vizio continues their work with quantum dot technology with full array backlighting and plenty of options to cater that quantum color to your liking. Now, quick disclaimer, I don't usually dive super deep into customizing the color rendering on televisions, so I don't have things like color calibrators or light meters. For Vizio sets, I tend toward the bright profile with the standard color temperature. I tend to keep full array around medium to keep any potential blooming from being too distracting, and I shy away from any added software motion smoothing to keep away from that soap opera effect. When it comes to colors, I am more than happy with what Vizio is doing here on the MQ6. There is an MQ7, which is the slightly more premium edition within the M line, and that bumps up the Rec 2020 color gamut to 84% from the 75% that my model has, and it also adds an ultra bright mode to blast out even more nits. If there's one thing that I can say about this particular MQ6 television, I do wish it gets a little bit brighter. Still, colorful and bright scenes from content like Korean dramas are enjoyable to watch, while more darker tones in games like Mass Effect Legendary Edition benefit from the contrast ratio that the full array LEDs provide. Ultimately, I've had no complaints with what I'm seeing, considering this is a television without the many local dimming zones and without the bumped up color gamut or brightness levels of its higher tier models. Really, the main thing you gotta keep in mind is that this is a model that even in Vizio's own lineup falls squarely in the middle. It's tuned just right for casual viewing. I mean, if you're a stickler for a specific image, then chances are you're willing to spend more for Vizio's more premium offerings anyway. And even if this is a mid-range television, the 4K that includes HDR with compatible peripherals will lead to nice and clear viewing, even at this size, 55 inches, which I would say is personally my lower limit for a high-resolution display. It's just small enough to easily fit into a space like you can see here, while being large enough to properly enjoy any of the content that it puts out. And there is a ton of content to enjoy even before you connect anything into the HDMI ports. One thing I have to applaud Vizio on in their recent televisions is all the smarts they add to the mix. SmartCast, as you can see right here, is a layer that should be plenty familiar by now, providing access to a bunch of different applications for streaming content. You get your usual subscription-based services like Netflix and even Apple TV Plus is on here, but SmartCast is also home to a ton of free content services that you might not have even realized existed. Quite a few networks have like a free, always streaming channel of sorts on top of their usual content. Easy examples of this are like local news networks, but there are niche options like a channel that's pretty much all Gordon Ramsay. If you miss channel surfing, you can kind of scratch that itch with SmartCast and all the stuff I just mentioned via WatchFree Plus, but I will admit that personally I just go straight to my usual main services. 6 of those types of services are prominently displayed on the top of this remote, with Peacock, Netflix, Prime Video, and Disney Plus prominently displayed, but I would have loved to have seen a YouTube button. One app that isn't in SmartCast yet is HBO Max, but it's kind of covered because you can just use the built-in AirPlay or Chromecast support to stream it from a phone or a computer. So with that in mind, I've been accessing all of my content without any issues, but if you do want to take advantage of the higher features that HDMI 2.1 affords you, like HDR playback, well, you can always invest in something like an actual Chromecast device. And speaking of devices, this remote is now voice control enabled, which is brand new to these TVs. The remote pairs to the TV via Bluetooth 5.0 and relays any voice searches either generally or through the app that you're currently accessing, like YouTube. All you have to do is hold down the button and talk. Open YouTube. While there's nothing wrong with the navigation system that is already built into the remote and all of the buttons, voice control is a nice way of just eliminating some of the presses and making things a little bit easier. And overall, the amount of smarts that Vizio puts into a pretty affordable TV like this is impressive, making it a great option for anyone that is looking for an all-in-one solution for their streaming apps, while of course accessing certain services via Chromecast and AirPlay when necessary. Which brings us to a big part of this TV's appeal, at least to me, the gaming features. As you can see from the setup I have here, I have the Xbox Series S and the PS5 hooked up to the HDMI 2.1 capable ports on this television. The third port, which has eARC support, automatically turns on and controls the Vizio soundbar, effectively completing my simple but effective gaming setup here. And with the HDMI 2.1, you get a few very important features. HDR is the first one, resulting in very vivid colors coming from various titles like Persona 5 Strikers on the PS5 and realistic rendering in Forza Horizon on the Xbox. After that, you get features like AMD FreeSync and variable refresh rate. The AMD FreeSync is used to ensure smooth and tear-free motion, which I've had no problems with as a result. Now, I've played hours and hours of games on this television honestly with very few complaints. So take this in for a second. An affordable TV at a good size, with a majority of the features that gamers might want to have in their television sets, complete with 4K resolution for some high-quality gaming. Vizio has really put together a pretty good package here. And if you're a gamer and you just put down the money recently on the console and any accessories on top of that, you might not have the budget for a TV that sports bigger size or even overachieving features. But considering that not even all content can support certain parts of a high-performance setup, the M-Series should be more than enough for the majority of you that are out there. So maybe you'll spend a little bit more money to get a mid-ranger rather than anything below it, but it's sure to stick around for both a good and pretty long time. But now we can talk about the features the M-Series is unable to provide, namely a higher refresh rate. The HDMI 2.1 ports do put out the features like HDR and AMD FreeSync and low latency response, but the variable refresh rate comes with one caveat, as this television can only go as fast as 4K at 60 Hz. For those of you hardcore gamers out there who might be enjoying the high refresh rate of either your smartphones or your gaming monitors, this is going to sound like a step down. But like I said a second ago, 120 Hz is something that's considered super premium. Case in point, Vizio has a P-Series lineup television that represents their flagship offerings, and I was able to review one of them. You can see the video appearing in the card right now. After a few updates to the firmware on that 2020 model, the HDMI 2.1 ports on the side now support 120 Hz in games like Devil May Cry 5 and Rocket League. But that's a P-Series Vizio TV, meaning it can start out at 65 inches and they are always more expensive. You're gonna have to pay for that extra performance, and that's something you'll have to figure out according to your own budget. Honestly, I think if you came this far in the video and you only just now learned about higher refresh rates in your TVs, then the loss of 120 in this M-Series is not gonna hurt you that much. So you could just get your console, enjoy the wonderful colors via the HDR this TV provides, and you'll enjoy your games all the same. There's really only one other place where I have a significant gripe with this TV, and it is with the built-in speakers. Given my experience with televisions over the last year or so, I realized that expecting great speakers from the televisions we buy is kind of futile. So in my case, the basically non-existent bass in the speakers on this MQ6 practically scream for a sound product to be added. And here I have one of Vizio's own 2020 soundbars which gets the job done. And as I mentioned before, it and this TV are eARC compatible, allowing for the corresponding HDMI port to control the volume of the soundbar, which makes things a little bit more convenient. So really, the sound is my least favorite part of this television that otherwise does a really good job of providing above average essentials. And that's really my main takeaway after my time with this new 2021 Vizio M-Series television. The fact that many of the features and details we might want from our televisions are becoming more and more accessible. Features like 4K, full array backlighting, great colors, HDR, and smooth playback are all possible in a TV that still provides a great viewing experience at this modest 55-inch size. All the staying in I've done over the last number of months has raised my expectations of my displays for both viewing and gaming pleasure, and now that I have all of that in mind thanks to Vizio's P-Series, I can safely say that the M-Series ticks all the right boxes for someone that's simply just trying to save a little bit of money. It's a little bit more expensive than last year's models, which, by the way, I should note, you can still get those at certain retailers, but viewers will enjoy the new voice controls in the updated remote for navigation and the all-in-one streaming services software which is SmartCast, while gamers will rest assured that they have all but the most overachieving of gaming features as they plug into the HDMI 2.1 ports on the back. And everyone can enjoy what Vizio has continued to bring in their quantum dot displays at that lovely 4K resolution without having to pay a ton of money. For more content from me about all things tech, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you think of the Vizio M-Series 2021 edition by dropping some likes on this video and getting into the comment sections down below. With all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.